it's a whole mentality that has to change. And so I think this summit is a great chance because the signal of the numbers is high, but can the mentality change behind it? Can the procedures be rushed? Can there be a surge of production and productivity? And this really calls for a defense industrial revolution of a sort in Europe. And is Europe up to that?
Defense industrial revolution. What's your take, Armida?
So a couple of things. The first thing is about the defense industrial base, and this is all coming at an unfortunate time, euphemism, because on the one hand, Europe needs to develop its own defense industrial base. On the other hand, we need capabilities quickly, and that's why the siren calls from the US will continue to call. I also just want to push back a little bit on something, Frederick, you said earlier in terms of the special relationship. Yes, absolutely. We Europeans relied entirely on the Americans. But let's also be honest, that relationship worked out both ways, right? Because it meant that Europeans procured equipment and capabilities from the US, providing jobs, economic growth, et cetera, in the US. So we just need to always kind of have that balanced argument. The bit that I'm concerned about when it comes to spending and kind of any talk about revolution is the public, and bringing the public along with us in this discussion, because we're going to need to have their backing if we're talking about these serious increases, which for many European countries are a huge hike. And there are a whole number of different European countries who face a really fiscally constrained situation. The UK, France, Italy, these are some of the bigger defense players as well. So their spending is going to be really difficult, and it's going to have to come from somewhere. Whether
taxes, debt.
Well, exactly, but
no
the
one
taxes piece is difficult. And I think there's also this risk, and we see this a lot in the UK, but also in some other countries, where the narrative is about, well, we spend more on defence, but it will bring us economic growth, which actually is quite a dangerous and slightly disingenuous argument, because ultimately defence spending is about increasing security. That's its primary purpose. It is not about economic growth benefits. Those can be secondary, and in some cases, like in Germany, where car factories are operating at about 25% capacity, it can lead to those secondary benefits as well. But there's this perception, because in Europe there's only about 5 countries or so that are really have big defence industries, and the rest will be part of the defence supply chain and, you know, much smaller startups and things like that. There is this idea that if we have to spend lots of money, it will go to France, Italy, Sweden, Germany. So making sure that the public understand, first of all, why we're doing this, what the threat is, and also that that money is going to be spread around Europe, and ensuring that policies actually enact that as well.
Yeah. And is there enough focus on that? Because I feel like all the focus is on this 5%, and even on that, there are some people, critics, who describe it as a kind of phony international bargain, because it's just ultimately a kind of creative accounting exercise as to how that money is going to be spent. So,
I think the public are increasingly becoming aware, and I mean, the Secretary-General regularly makes public statements about this. Kaja Kallas, the EU's High Rep, does as well. But it's not really clear yet to what extent this is going to be felt. And if we look at polls, especially in the Nordic and the Baltic states, obviously there's high levels of threat awareness that tapers off as soon as we move to kind of the southwestern part of Europe. But the stratcoms piece around this is really important, and much more needs to be done on that specifically.
Okay.